We are now interrupting your regularly scheduled programming with an important public service announcement. 5%ers say 85% of the population is ignorant about the truth of existence and about God. 10% know the truth and use their knowledge to control the 85%. And the remaining 5% know the truth and try to enlighten the 85. While I'm not a 5%er insofar as strictly following any teachings of Clarence 13X, nor consider myself religious, I'd say that breakdown is fairly accurate. The 85% are running on a hamster wheel constructed by the 10%. Some 85ers may mean well or may desire change, but they think it'll come via a vote or the rapture. A large portion are contented in their sleep, and others complain ad infinitum. To be fair, I do see protesters and people who mean well actually take positive action towards tangible change in the best ways they know how. The divide and conquer strategy works so well, though, that the 85% often stop themselves and the 5% from making meaningful progress. In my observation, the 5% possess the mental freedom, but due to the nature of society, are still physically bound to the physical manifestations of widespread social engineering and brainwashing. In the end, efforts the 85% take towards positive change usually comes back to the 10%, the oppressors, to have the final say. The truths which the 85 are ignorant of and the 10% use to maintain control is not widely understood nor talked about. The principles and laws that govern nature, and the most important effective methods for us to live in harmony with those laws. This information is not necessarily hard to understand, but it is challenging to implement, especially given the trends happening in society at any given time. It doesn't help that over thousands of years, people who possess this knowledge have been persecuted and put to death, which essentially made them fearful enough to occult or hide these teachings. Religious traditions were initially created to help people live by these natural principles, but clearly the oppressors wasted little time perverting those traditions into systems used again to divide, conquer, and control. Look at one of Jesus' teachings. Do to others what you would have them do to you, what we commonly refer to as the Golden Rule. We see how fundamentally simple that is. However, do we talk about A, how to mentally and emotionally get there, and B, what the impact of internalizing that philosophy could mean for us and the world around us? Firstly, I would like to address why it's hard but fair. I use that phrase to convey that nature's laws, or what some call karma, keeps everything how it's supposed to be. It's an unbiased, unfeeling phenomenon. I've heard that the universe bends towards Ma'at. If you're familiar with that, then these concepts should not sound foreign. But that means the universe bends towards justice, order, and balance. I don't wholly dispute that, but in my estimation as human beings, the universe bends towards those whose thoughts, emotions, and actions are congruent. Nature has no bias for positive or negative. When I talked about how people who are asleep think voting for a leader represents freedom, in reality, every action you take is your vote. Not for a political puppet candidate, but more importantly for the kind of reality you want to manifest. You can think about the law of attraction. I love to bring up the law of correspondence when discussing micros and macros. This is one of the natural laws or hermetic principles alluded to when people use the quote, "as above, so below." To give you a quick snapshot of what natural laws are, they're eternal principles that construct the boundaries of our reality. So just like there are laws of physics, the law of gravity, etc., there's laws that govern the intangible, the unseen, and hard to measure. Side note, this is why the oppressor goes above and beyond to keep you focused on the physical. They say the flesh is weak. They say be in the world, but not of it. I would argue that natural laws are science, not theology nor philosophy. While I can't give you a mathematical equation to tell you how to turn hatred into love, it's not impossible. Furthermore, natural principles are not man-made. They're not beliefs. Many people say whether they believe in karma or not, and the reality is its existence does not depend on your belief in it. Cause and effect is real, just like birth and death. Got it? Good. No, look, I'd be a fool to think that you really get it if you're starting from square one, but I don't know how to say it in more plain language. You gotta read and research. My podcasts are merely the observations and cliff notes of a student. When I declare that it's hard but it's fair, I'm saying we enable evil. And because of a combination of conditioning, laziness, hopelessness, selfishness, and apathy, we don't put forth the necessary effort to change society for the positive. Globally, I'm speaking to humanity. For anyone who wants to see positive change in the world, you have to become that change. The principle of mentalism says everything starts in the mind first. Thoughts precede action. Thoughts and feelings produce action and the quality of that action. This becomes behavior, and repeated actions are habit. All of these aspects build one's personality. Then you can start to look at the family, the culture, the country in a similar fashion. In turn, the larger groups influence the smaller groups, back down to the individuals. Again, the law of correspondence having a sort of ping-pong effect. With that, our environments inform our thoughts and nurture our young. We generally adapt to our environments, and while we can't be defined as monolithic, there is a collective conscious. So, back to the golden rule. This is why it's so important to become the change you wish to see in the world, why it's important to have your mind, emotions, and actions be congruent. The 10% move like that, and that's how such a small number of people are able to control society. The 85% help the 10% because they're unaware, too apathetic, conflicted in thought, emotion, and action, and too subservient. I don't want to do this, but I need the money. Saying you follow a certain religion, but your actions conflict with the doctrine. You don't agree with a company's business practices, but you still buy from them. You're a soldier or policeman, and you can bring yourself to violate another person's God-given rights under the guise of just following orders, just doing my job. Or how about paying taxes to fund the genocide that you say that you're against? You may say it's not that cut and dry, but it is. It's just not easy. We can make change. Some people have decent ideas for change, but they mistakenly believe that they don't have any power. The other issue never talked about is their solutions come out of a false premise, a premise about the world given to them by their oppressors. It's like how in the 1800s, doctors treated some diseased patients with mercury, but it ultimately caused more issues down the road because they didn't know enough about said disease and what actually works. If only we took righteousness as vitally as the oppressors take their agenda to manipulate. So in conclusion, all the ills of society are our responsibility. We can point our fingers at the elite, but they wouldn't be able to do what they do if we didn't comply or allow it. Beyond just the brainwashing, there's a veil of authority that keeps most of us in fear of physical consequences, ostracization, poverty, pain, death. I mean, Jesus wasn't scared. He stood up to the state basically alone, and even in the face of death. That's why his story is so powerful. And just imagine, what if everyone who was watching him, everyone from the people throwing stones at him to the people weeping, what if they actually helped him? That story is about each and every one of us. Two of the main things we can all do to make this world better is put ego aside and adopt a unity consciousness mindset. If one person is suffering, then so am I. When we are able to put our differences aside and come together in large numbers against forces that threaten our God-given rights, the obstacles that stand in our way won't have a chance.